Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Wisdom in the Best Books and Films, where we find bite-sized nuggets of truth and use them to become better people. I'm Jake Bear, the host, and this week we are going to be continuing our King Arthur themed stuff, sort of. This is not a directly King Arthur story. It is in fact a Scottish story that is called The Last Rime of True Thomas by Rudyard Kipling. And it's been a while since I did a poem on the show. I thought it'd be a great one because it's about a knight, and it's very similar to the King Arthur stories, even if it is a more Scottish one. It does have some Scottish words and some things that are a little bit maybe harder to understand, but I'm going to read it the way that it is because it's wonderful and sounds great, and I like it. But I will spend a minute here to go through some of those words. For example, then they replace all of the ofs with os, or most of them. They replace haves with hey, like I hay something instead of I have it. They talk about a belted knight, which is a knight that's been formally girded with some sort of a belt that's a ceremonial thing, like kind of like getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something. They have a lea, which is an open grassland or meadow. It has some mentions of fairies. It has a bent when it talks about 'twas bent beneath and blue above. Bent is a coarse, stiff grass that they have, rough turf. There is the word kine. It talks about the kine upon the nose. Kine is for cows. The nose in that case is for knoll, like a hill. It does say that somebody was dight in dark array, which means they were dressed in a dark clothing. It has lauded, which is to bow low or make obeisance, like they're bowing to the person. It says at one point they were hauden rein, which means they're holding the reins tightly, they're checking or restraining them. It says belled, when it says a deer bells to call the hind, he belled to call the hind. Belled means he bellowed or, yelled and did its mating call. The hind is a female deer. It says at one point there's the earth, or it talks about the mold, 1,000 fathom beneath the mold, and the mold is just the dirt, the topsoil, so it's just saying underground. And it talks about the middle world, which is just the fairy realm between the human world and the underworld or the heavens or whatever. So that's just a handful of words for this one I thought would be useful to know, but I didn't want to be stopping in the middle of the poem because I want to keep its rhythm as good as I can. I think it has a really good rhythm. It's one of the funner poems that I've read for having a good rhythm. I'll do my best at a Scottish accent. If you are from Scotland, I apologize for how bad I will do at it, but I will try my best. As usual, if you enjoy, please hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share the show with friends. Here is The Last Rime of True Thomas by Rudyard Kipling. The king is called for priest and cup, the king has taken spur and blade, to dub True Thomas a belted knight, and all for the sake o' the songs he made. They have sought him high and sought him low, they have sought him over and down the lea. They have found him by the milk-white thorn that guards the gates o' Faery. 'Twas bent beneath and blue above, their eyes were held that they might not see, the kine that grazed beneath the nose, and oh, they were the queens of Faery. Now cease your song, the king he said, oh, cease your song and get you dight, to vow your vow and watch your arms, for I will dub you a belted knight. For I will give you a horse o' pride, we blazon and spur and page and squire, we keep and tail and season and law, and land to hold at your desire. True Thomas smiled above his harp, and turned his face to the naked sky, where blown before the wastrel wind the thistledown she floated by. I have vowed my vow in another place, and bitter oath it was on me. I have watched my arms the livelong night, where 50 fighting men would flee. My lance is tipped o' the hammered flame, my shield is beat o' the midnight cold, and I won my spurs in the middle world, 1,000 fathom beneath the mould. And what should I make wi' a horse o' pride, and what should I make wi' a sword so brown? But spill the rings o' the gentle folk, and flight my kin in the fairy town. And what should I make wi' blazon and belt, wi' keep and tail and season and fee? And what should I do wi' page and squire that am a king in my own country? For I send east and I send west, and I send as far as my will may flee, by dawn and dusk and the drinking rain, and sign my sendings return to me. They come wi' news of the groaning earth, they come wi' news o' the roaring sea, wi' word o' spirit, and ghost, and flesh, and man that's mazed among the three. The king he bit his nether lip, and smote his hand upon his knee. By the faith o' my soul, True Thomas, he said, ye waste no wit in courtesy. As I desire unto my pride, can I make earls by 3 and 3 to run before and ride behind, and serve the sons o' my body? And what care I for your row-foot earls, or all the sons o' your body? Before they win to the pride o' name, I trow they all ask leave o' me. For I make honour wi' muckle mouth, as I make shame wi' mincing feet, to sing wi' the priests at the market cross, or run wi' the dogs in the naked street. And some they give me the good red gold, and some they give me with the white money, and some they give me a clout o' meal, for they be the people of low degree. And the song I sing for the counted gold, the same I sing for the white money, the best I sing for the clout o' meal that simple people given me. The king cast down a silver groat o' Scots money. If I come wi' a poor man's dole, he said, True Thomas, will ye harp to me? When as I harp to the children small, they press me close on either hand. And who are you, True Thomas said, that you should ride while they must stand? Light down from your horse o' pride. I trow ye talk too loud and high, and I will make you a triple word and sign, if ye dare, ye shall noble me. He has lighted down from his horse o' pride, and set his back against a stone. Now guard ye well, True Thomas said, ere I rax your heart from your breastbone. True Thomas played upon his harp, the fairy harp that couldna lee, and the first least word the proud king heard, it harpit the salt tear out his ee. Oh, I see the love that I lost long syne, I touch the hope that I may not see, and all that I did of hidden shame, like little snakes they hiss at me. The sun is lost at noon, the dread o' doom has gripped me. True Thomas, hide me under your cloak. God wot, I'm little fit to die. 'Twas bent beneath and blue above, 'twas open field and running flood, where hot on heath and dike and wall the high sun warmed the adder's brood. Lie down, True Thomas said, the God shall judge when all is done, but I will bring you a better word, and lift the cloud that I laid on. True Thomas played upon his harp, that burled and brattled in his hand, and the next least word that True Thomas made, it garred the king take horse and brand. Oh, I hear the tread o' the fighting men, I see the sun on splint and spear, I mark the arrow out in the firm, that flies so low and sings so clear. Advance my standards to that war, and bid my good knights prick and ride. The gled shall watch as fierce a fight as e'er was fought on border side. 'Twas bent beneath and blue above, 'twas nodding grass and naked sky, where ringing up the wastrel wind the Aias stooped upon the pie. True Thomas sighed above his harp, and turned the song on the midmost string, and the last least word True Thomas made, he harpit his dead youth back to king. Now I am prince, and I do well to love my love withouten fear, to walk with man in fellowship, and breathe my horse behind the deer. My hounds they bay unto the death, the buck has couched beyond the burn, my love she waits at her window, to wash my hands when I return. For that I live I am content, oh I have seen my true love's eyes, to stand wi' Adam in Eden glade, and run in woods o' paradise. 'Twas naked sky and nodding grass, 'twas running flood and wastrel wind, where checked against the open pass the red deer turned to wait the hind. True Thomas laid his harp away, and louted low at the saddle side, he has taken stirrup and hoden rein, and set the king on his horse o' pride. Sleep ye or wake, True Thomas said, that sit so still, that muse so long, sleep ye or wake till the latter sleep, I trow you'll not forget my song. I harpit a shadow out of the sun, to stand before your face and cry, I armed the earth beneath your heel, and over your head I dusked the sky. I harpit ye up to the throne of God. I harpit your midmost soul in three. I harpit ye down to the hinges o' hell. And ye would make a knight o' me? That's the end of the poem, and as I read it, I realized there were a few words that I probably should have added to that list, like they used the word E instead of I at one point, and there was also the word muckle, which means like not any. So when he said, I make honor we muckle mouth, that means without like talking. So to give you a little bit of background now that we've listened to the full poem, this is actually inspired by a medieval Scottish legend of Thomas the Rhymer. And Thomas the Rhymer was a 13th century poet and prophet that is said to have visited fairyland and gained the gift of prophecy and truth-telling. So basically in this poem, the king is inspired by True Thomas's songs. He finds him and he basically offers to make him a knight, to give him a big horse and armor and squires and land and all these things, in nobility. True Thomas basically says, no, I don't need that. I'm already doing things that I think are good. He says he won all his spurs against supernatural foes. He's done things that are heroic enough that he doesn't need the name of knight to go with his honors and his things that he's actually done. He says he sings his songs for clout o' meal. He sings his songs for little things like a little bit of bread or whatever. The king says, but he's done so many things. He can make people earls. He can make them rich, And Thomas says, basically, get down off your horse and listen to these songs that I'm going to sing. And then he plays 3 songs on his harp. The first one, it brings the harp music brings a tear out of his eye, his E. And he sings about the love that he's lost, and he sings about the hidden shame, these little snakes that hiss at him. And so he's kind of saying you've got some stuff, you've lost a love, and you're kind of ashamed of some of the things that you've done in life. He sings that first song to him. Then in the second song he sings, oh, I hear the tread o' the fighting men, and he sees the sun and splint and spear, and he's singing about kind of war and glory that the king has won from fighting, trying to bid his good knights to ride and defend the border. And then so he's kind of, the first one's a little depressing. The king's like, oh, I am ashamed of some things. And then the second one's kind of lifting him out of the despair into more of a, you've done some good things too. You've been a hero in defending your people. And then in the third song, he's harpit his dead youth back to the king. So he's bringing the king back to his youth and making him, now I am a prince and I do well to love my love withouten fear. So he's singing about the king being young again and having, chasing the buck and the deer through the woods. And he says to stand with Adam in Eden glade, run in the woods of paradise, right? So he's saying that the king is being brought back to a kind of paradise-like state. And then after the songs, True Thomas helps the king back onto his horse. He warns the king will never forget this last rhyme, that he has brought shadows from the sun, he has armed the earth beneath him, darkened the sky above, and harped him all the way to God's throne, that he split his soul in 3 down to hell's hinges, because the king tried to make a mere earthly knight of someone who was already touched by the fairies' deeper truths. So he's kind of showing the king some humility. He's teaching him that in his pride he was trying to raise someone up who was already above him, that True Thomas doesn't need to be a king. He says he's a king in his own country at one point, right? So True Thomas doesn't need to be like a king or an earl or any of these things. Nothing the king could bestow on him would raise him up from where he's already at. So the songs kind of humble the king and bring him a lesson about what actual nobility is, right? And that it is, in fact, the acts of True Thomas that make him a knight, that make him worthy of his name and his, we've been talking about the name won and the name given a couple weeks ago. So this is kind of True Thomas saying, I've won my own name and I don't need a title. I don't need anything like that to lift me up. And there's nothing you could do that would make me lifted up higher. And so the king is kind of somewhat rebuked, but mostly just I think it's that True Thomas is trying to help him find humility, and he does at the end, bring him up with thoughts of his youth and that paradise and that feeling of here's the kind of early potential that you had as a king, and you need to get back to that potential and lift yourself in humility towards what you ought to be. And so I like that story. It's not one of King Arthur's knights, but it is a story about a knight, and it could be inspired by King Arthur, or it could just be that it was very linked. There was a lot of good stories about knights at the time. So I hope you enjoyed that poem this week, and as usual, leave a review, share with friends, and we will see you next week with the final one of our thoughts from the Pendragon cycle. Before the next week, we will do one more short story out of kind of King Arthur-y type themes, and then we will be moving on at the end of the March for the 5th Sunday in March. We are going to be starting a new theme with an interview that's a special interview coming up. But more on that as we get closer to the end of the month. Bye-bye until next week.